So actually, Mr. Larry Wickham is here, who is our new Director of IT. So Mr. Mr. Primrose and I visited this morning, and he had asked about that, and asked also about, and this might be something Josh or Margaret might have information, knowledge about that I do not, about Adobe and maybe putting the board package together in it. I'll leave it to you, but anyway.
In the past, for the county, we would have, say, all of the department heads would send in a PDF file, and then Adobe will merge those PDF files together, and then you'll have an index, so that it's, because now we have all of the information on electronically, but it doesn't have the index and where you can go from one department head to the other without scrolling. Do you know if we have that capability?
Yes, we do. So that Adobe license is purchased through a consortium with UNM. So we leverage economies of scale and get a really good price from Adobe. And that allows us to provide Adobe Acrobat, which is the software required for that, to everyone on campus, staff, faculty alike.
Well, I like that format, to where you could bounce around and you have your index, where we could, I think eventually we could move to the electronic version of our agenda and save some time and effort for Ms. Ray.
And some trees.
And a few trees,
Yeah.
That's all I have under my report. The next report would be Dr. Moss.
So since we're on the subject, I'll start. I think some of you already know Mr. Larry Wickham in the blue shirt, Mesalands blue shirt. We brought him on as our Director of IT, and you know, we're excited about that because he brings so much institutional knowledge to us, and is competent, and he was already you know, came to us offering to help us, you know, with our Genza bar or anything else we needed, you know, after the spring, and so we're excited to have him here. So.
Welcome aboard.
A couple other things. You all have my report, but I was going to update on some things. You know, as far as finance, and we'll talk about this a little bit more when we get to the report. Ms. Hall and I met yesterday to go over this cash flow statement that I forwarded to y'all. And there's some things that I think we don't have right in it. Not that we're in a bad spot, but when you look at the first page of it, for instance, like, you know, it shows we have $1,069,000 or whatever in our checking account. But then when you go to the weekly cash flow statement and you get down to the bottom and it says for the week ending 11/4, we only have 67,000 available. And so we're missing some numbers. I think the spreadsheet is not calculating right. So I feel like we're in a much better position than some of the pages on that report is showing, and so we're going to be working to get that lined out. We know the information, which is something we might not have been able to say a few months ago, but we need to make sure we're getting it in that report where it's reflecting exactly where we're at. So even though we have like 1 million and some thousand, you know, we'll have 40 to 50,000 of outstanding checks. We'll have maybe 50 or 60,000 of upcoming expenses and things like that. We'll have payroll coming out, but it's not, you know, you're talking about 200,000 to 300,000 each time instead of the 900 and some thousand difference in those numbers. So hopefully over the next couple of weeks that sheet, that back cash flow sheet will match closer to that front cover sheet. But you know, we've still not used any money from HB2 since that initial 400,000. I feel good about where we're at right now, but we still got a lot of year left to go. I did visit with Mr. Honey a couple weeks ago, and you know, I said, you know, I keep putting this question off, but I want a definite answer, you know, what happens to that HB2 money if we don't use it? And he said, well, it's kind of, you're kind of, in a sense, getting, not punished, I can't remember what word, but, you know, for doing a good job. You know, if we don't utilize the HB2 or don't have to utilize HB2 money, it'll go back into the state general fund. And so, you know, at this point, you know, and I had questions like, okay, if we go through the whole year and don't use any more of HB2, which we'll use a little because we can pull the costs of our state audits out of that. If there's any Genzabar that we didn't use the State Board of Finance money to cover, we can use it for that. We can use it for the contractors that we currently have, Ms. Sharmer and Mr. Gray, that's helping in our business office. So we'll use some, but you know, if we get through the end of the year and we have 1.2 million still unused, but then we also have to look at year 24, 25. Is it, or do we have enough to start the year? You know, do we have a little bit of a balance built up? So one of the things I'm planning on doing when I get back from when campus is back in after Thanksgiving break, I'm already working on trying to get some meetings set up with some individuals with HLC, not HLC, LFC, DFA. I'm going to try to reach out to Senator Munoz, Chief of Staff, to make sure that they have the current information of where we're at. It's a short legislative session, but we want to make sure that all the current information is out there for them to see where we've come in the last 6 or 7 months. But overall, I feel good about it. The 2022 audit, I did check with Ms. Trujillo this morning. She said they are extremely busy. They're like reviewing 368 audits, but she's hoping to get a report and findings this week to us. So hopefully that we get that done. We still have, you know, several personnel positions. We had another custodian opening come up this past Thursday, and so we're still looking for some people to fill in some places. And I think we're getting to the point where, you know, over the next 2 or 3 months, you know, we can see if the trend continues the way we're operating right now, of where we need to maybe add a couple positions in places that are struggling to keep up. We got to fill the ones we have open now already, but that's part of my hope. Went to the LFC meeting yesterday. They were talking about the higher ed formula and the K-12 formula. Had a brief kind of informal meeting with Senator Woods and Representative Chatfield, who are both on that committee. They introduced me to a Rick May, who's kind of like the House GOP leadership, and just kind of committed to whatever they could do to help us. And so that was a good meeting. I'm going to talk about the leases at the end. Insurance, we should be getting a link to update our statement of values, like what our insurance covers. And I know Mark has an update on our insurance for our buildings that he'll give. So we'll get all that caught up. CD maturity dates, Mr. Box asked me a while back about, looked like those were out of date, and so Tammy is looking at those. She said either the dates have been changed and we just haven't updated the report, but she's going to look into those.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah. Let's see, I talked about HB2 money. So the foundation leases, I apologize. We said we'd bring that back up in November, and it just completely, when Margaret sent me the agenda last week, I just completely forgot about putting that on there. And Mr. Bittigan and I talked about it. So the foundation actually met a few weeks ago, and we had a good discussion, and they actually changed some things. So, you know, basically they've set the total for all the leases, which would be like the rough stock arena, the livestock trailer, the building trades trailer, all that would amount to right at 5,000, which is definitely doable for us. And I appreciate them being willing to look at those amounts and help us. And we didn't get the leases in till Monday. I even called the school attorney and said, can we add that to the agenda? It was tabled, and she said no. She looked through our agenda, said if you had something on the agenda that you could have tied it to, you know, but she said, I can't see anything on there. So it will be on December. It was not intentional, but that I take responsibility. When Margaret sends me the agenda, she does it so that I look at it and see if we've forgotten anything. And I don't know what, there's several things I could say may have been the reason for that, but it wasn't because I didn't want the leases on there. So we will have that on the December agenda. Monday, when we come back from Thanksgiving break, of course the college will be closed next week, the offices. I'm going to Eastern New Mexico education something meeting. It's kind of a dinner on Monday night. Mr. Kaiser and Mr. McVeigh are going with me, and I think Mr. Primrose is going too. So I think it's, Mr. Chatfield said it was an opportunity for us to like listen to him or question him on stuff. So hopefully we get some good information from it. That's all I can think of. You guys got any questions for me?
Well, I looked at the agenda prior to approval too, and I spaced it.
I wasn't going to throw you under the bus. I was going to.
My fault too. Is there any questions for Dr. Moss on his report?
The printout right there, is that still with Excel? Is that still?
Spreadsheet?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And so, like some examples, like if you're looking at that weekly cash flow, like one of the lines, pending expenditures and outstanding checks, for example, you know, you would show that on the week that you're presenting, but we've left the numbers on there for the last month and a half. And so, you know, you deduct that from your cash 1 month, and then those amounts that are outstanding, they may clear the next month, and then you show them again. So in a sense, we're subtracting from our cash more than like 2 or 3 times, and so that's showing on this report that we have less cash than what we actually have. And then like one place we had where our benefits, our fringe benefits were on there like 2 weeks in a row, and we only pay every other week. And so those are some things that she and I are going to look at, and we're both going to look at it before we send it to HED. But yeah, it's still in Excel. And that's another thing we haven't taken the time to really explore the links. You know, she knows, you know, where to get the bank balances and can pull the outstanding checks and things like that, but we just got to make sure we got everything in the right place.
Yeah, so you rely on the formulas in each cell then. They've got to be correct first.
That's
garbage in, garbage in, garbage
Yeah.
out. So.
yeah.
All right, thank you, Dr.
Yep.
Moss, appreciate it. Next will be the quarterly report for the quarterly financial action report. This report looks a lot better than the last quarter. I appreciate all the work. I'll turn it back over to Dr. Moss.
Just a quick note, you know, This is something everyone files every quarter. It's not just because of our situation, I don't think. Like Mr. Primrose, you know, last one had probably several check marks in yes, and we had to explain why. And actually, number one, a request in advance of state subsidy. I questioned Mr. Eccles with HED. I'm like, we haven't requested anything this quarter. I said, you know, we received some. We requested it probably back in June, but we didn't get it till July. So do we have to mark yes on that? And he said, yeah, we need to put yes on that. But you know, there's obviously a good explanation of why we have drawn some money from that appropriation.
Are there any questions on the quarterly financial action report? Not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and approve, and a second to approve the quarterly financial action report. Roll call, please.
Mr. Box?
Yes.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yes.
Mr. Primrose?
Yes.
Ms. Stevenson?
Yes.
And Mr. Sidwell?
Yes.
And the motion carried.
All right, appreciate that. Next would, the change to the board meeting in March from the 12th to the 19th. Right,
No, it's from the 19th to the 12th.
oh, instead of the 19th.
Because of the spring break.
Spring break. So, anybody have a problem with changing the
Not at
March
this point.
meeting to the 12th?
A lot of time between now and then, I don't know what's gonna happen.
We may have to change it again.
We may have to change it again.
Yeah.
I make a
We'll
motion
deal
that
with
we
it.
approve the change.
Okay.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to change the March meeting. Roll call, please.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yes.
Mr. Primrose?
Yes.
Ms. Stevenson?
Yes.
Mr. Sidwell?
Yes.
And Mr. Box?
Yes.
And the motion carried.
All right, next, Dr. Moss. Oh, did I? Oh, yes.
What? Yes.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Next is the October financial report. Dr. Moss has gone over that.
One thing I'd add, Mr. Primrose and I were visiting this morning, and I'm gonna say this because Mark will remember better than I do. We'll try to cut the checks that aren't, we'll try to go from meeting to meeting on the checks so that you're not going, so that we don't have, because right now it goes all the way back to like January or something like that. So we'll try to make it just current, so.
Any other questions for Dr. Moss on financial report? Not, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I so move.
I second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the financial. Roll call, please.
Mr. Primrose?
Yes.
Ms. Stevenson?
Yes.
Mr. Sidwell?
Yes.
Mr. Box?
Yes.
And Mr. Sandoval?
Yes.
And the motion carried.
All right, thank you. Next is the administrative handbook, administrative affairs handbook. The one we received was incomplete, but Ms. Ragland has given us a final copy of it. And all of these two handbooks, they're all approval based on any changes from the attorney. The
Yes.
attorney still has to review them.
I sent it to her last week, about the same time we sent it to you all. And she was gonna try to have it done by today, And she sent me a question yesterday about the reimbursement schedule, but we'd already updated that since we'd sent it out. So I'd hoped I'd have, but I also didn't really expect her to get all the way through both of them by then. So that's what I'd like to do is get approval on what we have, and then if she sees anything that needs to be changed, we can update it. But I'd like to get some of that stuff started. I think it will matter, like when we switch our payroll from ADP to Genzabar, to get some of that, like particularly days. You know, we want to make sure that we have it right. That's one of the big changes is, you know, when it was changed, like, well, first of all, when we went to a 4-day week, we didn't change, the handbook wasn't changed, and so, you know, the days and hours weren't what they were originally. And then when the handbook was approved in February, you know, there were a lot of titles were changed and stuff like that. And so basically the process we went through, back a couple months ago, the staff met, and I think the faculty may have did that as well, and they marked a lot of changes in it. And then, you know, we kept kind of pushing it back. And so Ms. Kim Enriquez has done a lot of work on the personnel handbook. Margaret did a lot of work on the administrative handbook. But Ms. Enriquez and I actually sat down last Monday, went through all those changes, made sure we had everything that looked right, marked and highlighted. And so we also sent the handbooks out to the staff last week. I haven't heard anything, which I don't think there would be, because we pretty much took all those changes that they noted that needed to be changed and put them in there. I would note a couple things in the administrative handbook. The only, like, some of the amounts we changed just to match state statute as far as what could be approved. And then in the personnel handbook, a couple changes that were made were like, I think, you know, we were offering like 24 hours of bereavement. Well, that, instead of 3 days, that was under the 4-day week, that's only 2.5 days. So we just expanded that a little bit to 30 hours, so if somebody would still have the 3 days for bereavement. We expanded personal leave from 16 hours to 20, because that would then be the regular 2 days. And then vacation or annual leave, you know, that was changed to hours, so that you know, when you went from 8-hour day to 10-hour day, we went from giving people, like, say if you have 16 days of annual leave, you went from a little over 3 weeks to 4 full weeks of time. And so if we do it by hours, we're still giving the amount of time that was in the original. That was a lot of explanation. I don't know if that made sense or not. But I didn't want to take time away from anybody, but we needed to get it kind of back to where it was.
I only have one question. Talking about $20,000 to get purchase orders. And professional services is $60,000. Isn't that correct?
Correct.
We don't mention or anything about not doing an RFP if it's professional services and it's less than $60,000. I don't know if that. It's still going to be. Instead of doing an RFP, you could actually do a contract for professional services without doing it. I don't know if that's something that
Well,
you wanted to look at or not.
I thought it had it in the language that anything, it was just thresholds up to that amount or below that amount. I can't remember if it said it in there, but there's a flow chart that goes along
Yeah.
with that as well.
So if it's greater than 20,000, you have to do an RFP?
No, sir. So that's the threshold of 20,000 kicks in when it 60,000 and above, then you have to either go out for, if it's a RFP or also invitation for bid, if it's, say, a construction project. But anything beneath those thresholds, it's implied, and maybe we do need to add a language, I thought it was in there where.
Okay.
You are able still, to enter into an agreement with somebody for professional services underneath that threshold.
Excellent question.
And just to be, one of the things that I want to see that get changed is because like Ms. Sharmer, who's working as under contract, she actually lowered hers so that we could get her in quickly. But now, once we get that approved, I'd like to expand hers. It'll still be under the 60,000, but so that we can keep her through the whole year working with us.
Any other questions on this administrative handbook? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve pending attorney changes.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Ms. Stevenson? Yes. Mr. Sidwell?
Yes.
Mr. Box?
Yes.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yes.
And Mr. Primrose?
Yes.
And the motion carried.
All right. Next is the personnel handbook. One thing I really liked about this is the very first, where we talked about the history. I thought that was very informative, but it just went through 2015. I don't know if we're going to get it
Update.
correct. But this was really, really nice that we started from scratch and saw where the progression for the college was.
Well, it was a lot to read. I never did get all the way through it.
It was good to see too that, on this copy versus the last one, that we could see what changes were made. So that was good.
Well, I appreciate all the work that
Yeah, that was
done
very
on
helpful.
these reports. There's not any other questions or comments, entertain a motion to approve pending attorney approval.
So
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. Approve the personnel handbook. Roll call, please.
Mr. Sidwell?
Yes.
Mr. Box?
Yes.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yes.
Mr. Primrose?
Yes.
And Ms. Stevenson?
yes.
And the motion carried.
All right. Next on the agenda is Mr. Kaiser, Vice President of Academic Affairs.
So, Mr. Chairman of the board, fellow board members, you have the academic affairs report. And I wanted to take a moment to highlight an important event that was left off on item number 2. And this would happen during our finals week, December 4th through the 7th. And this is the Honors College presentation. And our director of the Honors College is here tonight, Mr. Dean Garcia. And we have 3 students that will be presenting on December 5th from 5 to 7 p.m. And I believe that'll happen in the lobby area, the entrance area.
December 5th.
December 5th from 5 to 7 p.m. And what the Honors College focuses on is taking, within a typical course, the student takes on an extra research project that's very specific to one part of that discipline taught within that area, or a special topic research. So you really get to see students doing this critical research where they're going out and investigating more than just a foundations level course area. So if you guys can make it, I think it'd be really informative, and it's really great to see these students get excited about doing research. You know, we can always be excited about that, right?
Do they get extra credit or anything outside of just being honored?
And I'm not sure what the actual course by course, if there's extra credit. I've seen a lot of these honor college projects go toward, for instance, the paleontology program had some students that participated, and their research was actually featured in some articles and some other areas later after that. So I think the benefit is for those pursuing maybe a 4-year pathway, because it shows that they know how to conduct that critical research. But also in the studio arts, we've seen students showcase their finished jewelry work and spur work too. So it's something where they're now entering that professional presentation level and learning how to pursue more than just the classroom project, but taking it into practice. So.
And the 3 honors students now, what are their disciplines going to be? Do you know yet?
I knew you were going to ask that.
One of them is paleontology, and the other 2 are doing nursing.
Okay,
Wonderful, wonderful.
thank you.
And when they complete the honors course and the presentation, they do get on their transcript that course was completed with honors.
Thank you for that, Hank. And again, during that week, we're wrapping up our fall semester with finals week, and just to take a moment to thank thank our faculty for pushing through this semester and supporting our students. But there's this other group within academic affairs that supports all of the systems of academics within this division, and I wanted to take a moment and point those members out to you all. If you go down to area 6, topic 6, Dr. Denise Hackett, who is working on our institutional research and accreditation, so she's been working very hard and working with our accreditors, so she'll be presenting an HLC report tonight. With that, we also have, of course, number 2, Nikki Vasquez, our chief librarian, and she's been working round the clock, preparing for finals, preparing after-hour study sessions for our students, and at times outside of our study sessions for those students that can't make it to those normal hours that we observe. And a great example is some of our nursing students. They can't make our normal library hours because they go to work after class, or they go to work before. So our librarian's willing to come in on Friday and Saturday mornings and schedule times, these study sessions, which is amazing. Student support and retention. We have Ms. Gutierrez, who's been following up with outstanding grades for our dual credit students. So she's chasing down those grades from instructors, and she's doing a great job with those, reaching out to our high school counselors. And within our distant ed area and workforce, Ms. Kim Enriquez has been supporting our LMS systems, helping to build handbooks as well. And she's also been working on our workforce program, supporting our CDL examiners. And what I can tell you about our CDL program is, it seems to me that we're doing testing every other weekend. We're actually doing active CDL testing. So it's a matter of time before we have the funds ready to purchase a semi. I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed when I say these things, 'cause I'll talk at it. And that'll help us really jumpstart that CDL training program. So again, many thanks to that group, and of course, again, Dean Garcia and Kylie Collins in the ESC area supporting our Educational Services Center. A lot of after-hours activity there with our ESL classes, and we're doing a lot of proctoring of tests, and again, supporting private tutoring sessions as well for our students. So an amazing job from our Academic Affairs Division. And then there's that other guy, that VP of Academics, and I'm not sure what he really does, but I'll keep him busy. And that's what I have. Any questions about the Academic Affairs Division?
I just want to thank you and all of the others that have been recognized for all of the work that you do. We appreciate the commitment that y'all have done for Mesalands, and we appreciate all of that.
I'll second.
Thank you. Thank you. Anything else?
Change the calendar.
Changing the calendar.
We have to take action on that.
Is that me?
To move.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Sorry.
pass it off to somebody else.
I'm sorry, I didn't have it on my list here.
It's that guy you were talking about.
So-
Changing the academic calendar approval to January instead of February.
Right, so I would like to recommend changing the academic calendar approval date to January instead of February.
I so move.
All right.
And I second.
Motion and a second to change the academic calendar to January instead of February. Roll call, please.
Mr. Box?
Yes.
Mr. Sandoval?
Yes.
Mr. Primrose?
Yes.
Ms. Stevenson?
Yes.
And Mr. Siplo?
Yes.
And the motion carries.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be Dr. Hackett, Executive Director of Institutional Research and Accreditation.
So, as everyone knows, we had our advisory visit from Higher Learning Commission, which is our regional accreditor. The reason for the visit was an advisory visit because of the designation of our financial distress, which we were designated a while back. So we put together a report, and ended up being, I think, like 999 pages before the visit, and then they came and did their visit, and they were focusing on certain criteria. There was 5 criteria core components and 5 assumed practices they were looking at. And they've given us their report, but their report is in the process of going to their board for approval and final recommendation. But usually what they recommend is what the board goes with. And so we remain fully accredited, and our next comprehensive evaluation will be March 31st and April 1st of 2025. This has been pushed back. If you recall, it was going to be in November of 2024. But after their visit and they see all the changes that we're making and that we need more time, our window for our 10-year could have been 24 or 25. So we requested a March 31st and April 1st, 2025, and that's been approved. So we have until then, which is perfect timing, to get a couple of these criteria and assumed practices up to par. There was a couple of things they found. They understand that we're in the progress of making these changes, and most of them we've already fixed or we're working on. So that's important to remember. And for the assumed practices, we were met criteria for 3 out of 5. And the two that they marked that we need to work on is the institution has future financial projections addressing its long-term financial sustainability. And the other one was the institution undergoes external audit. And as you know, those are both of these kind of stem back from not having the audits complete on time. So those will be fixed. And then as far as the core component, 3.C, the institution has faculty and staff needed for effective, high-quality programs and student services. And they found, this is one that we started working on and we will be working on, their summary of that I wanted to read. Okay, Mesalands has implemented extreme budgetary restrictions while it is working to diligently to become current on financial obligations and to complete the prior 2 fiscal years with appropriate audits. During this time, the institution has reduced staffing significantly as a mechanism to address the budget shortfall. The interim president recognizes that the institution needs appropriate staffing. Nonetheless, there is insufficient evidence to show that current staffing at MCC is sufficient for the institution in the long term. The knowledge and training are not equally strong across all institutional departments, and an analysis of the gap is needed to ensure that key positions have knowledge and trained personnel with a documented process for continuality. So those are the 3, and the other ones, we have some that are marked with concerned, and mainly it is due to the amount of time that we've spent fixing these. So, for example, they say this part of the core component is met with concerns due to the relatively short time frame in which the concerns have been addressed by the institution and the ongoing nature of the institutional efforts at this time. So we have things to work on, but we are fully accredited and we remain, and we will have another visit for our 10-year comprehensive in March of 2025. And that'll give us, plenty of time. Our audits will be up to date and all these things can be worked out. I wanted to touch on the Lightcast, but I don't know if it's not in the agenda, if I can discuss that. Or
It's not voted.
It's just a report, it's not
Okay.
an action.
Okay, so NIMIC, the New Mexico Independent Community College, sourced a company called Lightcast, and they do economic studies, and they wanted to do it for all the junior colleges, and then we had an option of doing it independently as well. So we did, and I think HED, I know NIMIC was paying for the overall one, and I think HED is paying for, so basically it was free for Mesalands to have this economic impact study done. And I submitted a ton of data. And finally we got the draft report. So I can't talk official numbers because we're supposed to validate the data, and then they said maybe mid-December we'll have the official report that we can use. But they sent us an executive summary, a fact sheet, and then a full report that's like about 100 pages. And I just wanted to read the summary because it was really exciting for me. Basically, the point of this is just to, what if Mesalands wasn't here? It kind of shows the importance of what Mesalands brings to the community and the economy and our students and employees. And so I wanted to read, and the service area for this is Harding, Quay, and Union counties. That's our service area. The results of this study demonstrate that MCC creates value from multiple perspectives. The college benefits regional businesses by increasing consumer spending in the region and supplying a steady flow of qualified trained workers to the workforce. MCC enriches the lives of students by raising their lifetime earnings and helping them achieve their individual potential. Finally, MCC benefits society as a whole in New Mexico by creating more prosperous economy and generating a variety of savings through the improved lifestyle of students. And so super exciting to see this, and they also do another part of the study is on ROI, so return on investment, like a student. I think one of the examples was a student that graduates from Mesalands, for every $1, I think was it 8 or 7, the return of investment is an extra $8 on, yeah. So it's a very detailed, and everything's in there. The main report that's 100 pages has a methodology that they use to come up with these numbers, and so it'll be fun to show the fact sheet and to have all that, and basically to brag about Mesalands and why we're here and why we matter, and not only for the students, but the community and our families and the economy, and so on. So that's all I have. I'm excited to get the final, and when I get it, I'll send it to each of you, and hopefully we can
I
mark
thought
it.
it was very interesting to see the numbers supporting what we're saying, how important
Yes.
Mesalands is to the community
Yes.
in the area. I thought it
Yes.
was very good.
Yep, and I'm hoping that, you know, NIMIC and HED can use these for funding formulas, you know, once they see how important it is, so.
One of the questions I ask, you know, is how does that, because basically they studied all the new junior colleges in New Mexico, and, you know, how does our ratios compare to other colleges? And they said it was kind of a, you guys correct me if I get this wrong, it's kind of a two-part answer. From an economic standpoint or something, said you can't really compare one to the other. It's unfair, different factors and things like that. But said, you know, but for what we're looking for, our ratios, like, you know, what $1 of investment to what it comes out is actually in the high end of the studies they've done this year, which is great news for us, if that makes sense. So.
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to this being,
Yes,
being able to publish it, because I think
Yes.
it's going to show
yes,
everybody how important Mesalands is to
Yes.
this area, which we know because we're here every day, but
right.
to let everybody else know how important that is.
Exactly.
It was a great report.
Yep.
And I think the HLC report was good too. We can't do anything about the audits and the financials,
Right.
but they understand that what we're doing is the right direction. We
Mhm.
just haven't been doing it long enough.
Right, and
for
they
them to
acknowledge
make a
that in some of the
determination.
summaries and some of the stuff with board
Right.
improvements and all of that. I don't wanna read through it all, but, yeah, they had some wonderful things to say, and they know we're making progress. It's just, we need time.
Well, I sure appreciate all of the work you've done. I know
You're
it's
welcome.
massive.
Was it in the Lighthouse report, I'm trying to remember it from the computer. They had a list of disciplines and numbered by them. I think it was the number of people in favor of like animal science, ag business and things like that. Was that in this report? by now?
Yes, in
I
the
think so,
Lightcast,
yes.
mhm.
So I find it pretty interesting, you know, that there's, the highest numbers were actually for the agricultural related. And, you know, for me, that'd be a path forward, you know,
Mhm.
that we need to get into, I think.
Mhm.
College.
Right, yeah, we can use this in all ways, not just for marketing and bragging, but looking at maybe, you know, what kind of programs we need, what do we need for the workforce, so, yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Absolutely. Any other questions for Dr. Heck? Appreciate all of
Okay.
you.
Thank you all.
so
You're
much.
welcome.
It's very,
Thank you.
Thank you.
very informative. Next will be Student Affairs, Mr. Bay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. So you have the report of student affairs in front of you, which includes our enrollment management, financial aid, athletics, recruitment, and our student events, student life, institutional advancement, marketing. So I don't want to go over everything necessarily. I'm happy to answer any questions. And tonight, of course, we also need to cover the enrollment report for the fall. So I want to get to that as well. But I do just a couple of things here that I would like to highlight. And we also have financial aid here tonight to give us the financial aid report as well. You know, we are excited with recruitment, seeing Mr. Julio Galindo's efforts there that are listed out on the students that he's been working with in the different programs and areas of interest that students have listed there. We're looking forward to seeing that as it builds and culminates, and those prospective students turning into full-time students. Institutional advancement, we did receive full approval on CTE and Perkins grants. You can see the total there for $25,738, so we're very excited about that for the next year. And then we continue to wait for the Food Security Initiative grant that we had applied for. The state is continuing to consider those, so we're still waiting for an answer on that grant as to who will be awarded that. And of course, we continue to search for funds for the wind turbine, finding different avenues to secure those. And something we were talking about the personnel handbook and history there. Something that I noticed in there is the turbine initially, when it was first financed, it was interesting to see that the Department of Labor was a part of financing that, and want to keep that in mind potentially for the future. Maybe that might be another avenue of funding that we might be able to pursue as we move forward. Marketing, and I'm gonna explain this a little bit more as we move into our enrollment report with the high schools. As we're working with high schools with dual programs to bring them into the college and helping them on their pathway to move into as full-time students in the college. We're also working on marketing to dual students to help them understand the value and the opportunity that they have in high school. Some potentially completing their 2-year degrees when they graduate high school, which we have had. So a part of that marketing campaign, or that reaching out, notifying them, we're starting something that's called Start Early, Finish First campaign. Start Early, Finish First. We've made some T-shirts already in supporting our local athletics here in Tucumcari, as kind of breaking into that, just beginning that phase, and as we begin to design that to reach out to our dual students to help them onboard and bring them into full-time students here at Mesalands Community College. So I'll move into the enrollment report that I presented to all of you. As we look at the enrollment report, we can see that our overall enrollment has declined from last fall. So these are fall numbers year over year. But I do want to point out that on-campus enrollment has increased by 60%. So on-campus enrollment has increased by 60%. So the decline that we saw in our enrollment this fall has come from, again, we've discussed this earlier with our dual students, the high schools. Again, we are serving high schools that are within our service area, and so we've reduced that, and that has to do, again, with finances. We want to be as efficient as possible, and so that's enabled to help us save money, but also I want to draw your attention to our full-time students. So last fall we saw an increase in our full-time students, which means that these are students that are taking 12 hours or more, and we want to help them be full-time students so they can complete on time. So again, that number essentially is very close to the same. The full-time students, basically 2 students difference on that. So it's important to show that, which also reflects in our FTE. So FTE is full-time equivalent, and FTE is a part of our funding formula that the state uses, and so there is a decrease there, but it's not as significant as the total decrease of enrollment. So the enrollment numbers, which are the numbers of students that are enrolled, that's important, but at the same time, we need to keep in mind that our full-time enrollment, again, didn't decrease at the same rate or degree that our overall enrollment did. And on-campus enrollment is growing. Also with corrections, there's some changes that corrections are making, and so due to those internal adjustments that they're making internally, it's reflecting in the overall enrollment that they've been able to have students enroll. So again, 2 areas that we've seen with very good reason, but we've seen decreases in, which affects our overall enrollment. But again, the positive news is that our on-campus enrollment has increased, our full-time enrollment is doing well, and then our FTE is not decreasing at the same rate as our total enrollment. So I feel good about that. We can do better, we need to do better, of course, and we need to continue to, I want to continue to see the numbers for on-campus enrollment increase, which is full-time students.
Well, Tom, something that I see here looking at the recruitment, how many of them goes back to the ag that you were talking about just a minute ago? The majority of these recruitment possibilities goes back to a tie back to the ag. So that kind of gives us an idea of probably where we need to be heading here a little bit.
Yeah, that's the way I see it too.
do see the three highest are animal science, nursing, and wind, the three that are the higher ones.
Like business.
Yeah, of students showing interest in those areas.
Well, and I think ag has been part of the Clay County major economic development driver for years.
Right, service
And
area,
it's-
yeah.
It still is, so that's great. Farming and ranching is so important.
And forgive me, I want to also add, I'm sorry, athletics. Esports, again, we talked about this last month, they're being awarded their gaming systems as one of the 5 colleges in the nation. They had to postpone that, but it will be happening on the 27th of November. So the 27th of November, that's when those gaming systems will be awarded, and very excited to have the company come and film and make a big media event of that as well.
And are we gonna see, now that, we, I know we had some problems with corrections, is it going to increase, you think, or is their criteria changed?
So there were a couple issues with that. One, it took a long time to finally get enrollment done, and I think we're finally to a point where we're no longer enrolling students. I think the last couple we've said we're past that date to make any changes. One facility that has huge numbers sent in a lot of enrollment that didn't have the right documents and stuff, and so by the time they actually got those in, it was really too late, and so that's reflective of the lower number too. But also, the directors at corrections, there were a lot of Fs like in the spring semester, and so some of those students, may not be eligible to have been in school this year. There are a few of those that we're still working through, I think, to make sure that we have the right grade.
I was gonna add, there's some other things happening with communication that were probably non-existent in the past. And as an example, all of our instructors can now show current student status with all of the PMs, with their supervisor of the prison learning system at one time. So we're doing this all through a shared Google Doc. So if we see that students are inactive, that facilitator at one of those 9 correctional facilities, they're getting that information in real time instead of 2 or 3 weeks later, or through a sent review sheet that goes through the mail or something like that. So I think that's changing the game here, and we have some new programs, some new courses that are going to be offered. So I think that's going to help increase enrollment out there.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
No
Thanks
further
for everything
questions.
you do. Mr. Gonzalez?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and fellow board members. I present to you our annual financial aid report. It does, of course, show the series of the last 5 years, and you can see the trend in our financial aid resources and students that benefit from that. Starting last year, I included our year-to-date of our current year to kind of show you the trend that we might be on the upward tick in financial aid and students receiving. So for 2022, our federal financial aid awarded was $925,233. That includes Pell Grant, direct loans, federal work study, VA education benefits, SEOG, which is a student equal opportunity grant, HERF funds, of the last HERF 3 funding that we had to disperse to students, and AmeriCorps monies. State aid was $163,498. State funds include SSIG, which is a state student incentive grant, CAG, which is a college affordability grant, which is now gone away because of the New Mexico Opportunity Scholarship. the New Mexico Lottery Scholarship, State Work Study, DBR, which is the Department of Vocational Rehabilitation, the New Mexico Opportunity Scholarship, as well as the Legislative Endowment Scholarship, which is, again, state funded. Our institutional funds was $98,687. That includes institutional scholarships, including our Bridge Scholarship for lottery path students, athletic dollars, as well as institutional work study, because we do have a percentage match to federal and state work study when we award it. Third-party financial aid in the amount of $50,425 is private scholarships, so that is all other organizations, tribal monies, as well as private loans, which we haven't processed private loans in several years because most students are now eligible for federal direct loans when needed. So our total financial aid awarded for the 22-23 year was $1,358,662, and 327 students benefited. You can see that the increase from 2021 to 2022 was significant. It doubled, not only in money, but also in students benefiting. That is in connection with the HERF funds that I had to award, and that covered several years that we actually awarded those monies, so it increased it significantly. As of today, 2023-2024, our federal monies that we have awarded thus far is $706,000, which is an increase. Total aid is an increase of $85,000, with 61 more students benefiting. You can see there's a huge jump in our state aid, which this goes back to our New Mexico Opportunity Scholarship, as well as the fact that our correctional students are now eligible for financial aid, not only federal financial aid, but state financial aid, which increases our enrollment numbers because then they are actually able to utilize financial aid and take more classes, so they are actually able to complete faster. Institutional aid, we've already awarded $65,471. Third party outside scholarships, $18,000. So again, we have more students already year to year receiving aid and then awarding aid. So I will take any questions.
Yes. The scholarships that the foundation awards, does that come under the private scholarships?
It is
Is
considered
that where it is
private.
there? And is the majority of that from the foundation?
I have not
Or-
yet awarded foundation scholarships for the 23-24 award year. I was given a printout of all the scholarships available. So we did a last push for students to submit applications. That has now closed, and so now my committee will meet and we'll review the applications, and then we'll
It'd be
begin
interesting
awarding.
to see, yes.
Mhm.
Thank you.
The state's always talking about the opportunity scholarship. Is that increasing or about the same? Or, do you know?
What- Well, they keep changing the rules, you know, it's one of those where they extend the goal line a little bit for you. The basics is a student must have a 2.5 GPA or higher. They must, at the 2-year level, not have more than 90 credit hours. They cannot have any type of degree, so if it's an associate's, a bachelor's, or above. It is, the Opportunity Scholarship pays 100% tuition and fees for students. We're finding more people are coming back. More people are increasing the credit hours that they're taking because they are now eligible, because a lot of these students were not federal financial aid eligible or even other state aid eligible, but they are eligible for the opportunity. And so it helps our enrollment, but it also benefits, of course, the students. And then they can transfer it with them to the 4-year. And so our numbers have definitely increased, because when we started, I think our allocation was 100,000, because it started at the 2-year level. And then they opened it was so successful, then the 4 years were like, well, we want a piece of that pie. So then they opened it up to the 4 years. Some 4 years got a little greedy and increased their tuition, and the state was like, oh, no, we can't do that. So they're keeping an eye on those things. But it's definitely increasing. They're reallocating monies, and we no longer receive an allocation of opportunity. It's basically you apply, you can award whatever you can, and we'll reimburse you.
Well, that's good. They're always talking about on the reading paper.
Mm-hmm. eligible. I wish they would put in that little disclaimer for those who qualify. Because I've had senior citizens come and they're like, well, it says seniors get free education. I was like, well, that's a little different interpretation of the policy, but yes, definitely it benefits everyone.
Any other questions? Appreciate it.
All right, thank
Appreciate
you.
all your
Thank
work.
you.
Thank you very much. Next will be Mr. Martinez.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Finally have some updates on some topics we've been discussing, or lack of discussion, wishing we had some updates. So the first, I'll start with the Building A project. Finally got the information I needed back from the architect. And during that time between, I think even I sent this report out, the contractor reached out to me and stated in October that the cost for the furniture had gone up. So there's an original order, and I asked them to please move forward with that and get the furniture on site, get it installed. Then there's a second portion to that order that they wanted a down payment on, or money up front, which obviously we cannot pay for goods before received. So that was a no-go. So we're working through that to try to figure out that second portion of the order for the furniture. So that's the holdup on that project now. Did receive an update as far as installation of the HVAC for Building C as well as Building D. That's now been pushed back due to the holiday to the beginning of December. I didn't get a firm date. The gentleman just said 1st of December, so I'm hoping the first week of December would be the date for installation. Also wanted to bring good news about the fitness center. We've been going back and forth about that in an effort to try to make that 24/7. Thankfully, for the meeting, I'd like to thank our new IT director, Larry Wickham. He's been able to obtain quotes for the parts necessary needed for that. Now we'll move forward with the requisition, go through that process, purchase order, push that out quickly, and then move towards ordering and ultimately installing it and moving one step closer to achieving that goal. Also working on the GEO bond for the library. I held up a few requisitions. I just wanted to make sure I was comfortable when I knew the background story, how that process works for the libraries, and making sure that if we need a notice of obligation, we obtain that before we move forward with the purchase or with the purchase order. I was able to reach out, found a contact through an email thread, Mr. Ruben Aragon and April Kent. They're part of the New Mexico Consortium of Academic Libraries Board for the Legislative Committee, which is nice. So more than anybody, they either know that background, at least the process, or point me in the right direction. So as it stands, we've gone back and forth with a few emails, just making sure that what we're requesting to be purchased through that program is eligible. And then just for my general knowledge, so I have a full idea of the picture, they're going to have a Zoom meeting scheduled with me after the break to discuss the whole process. That way I feel comfortable and I know as well it's something new to me, and I want to make sure I'm educated in that. Also, still moving forward with the other departments. We still have some vacancies in maintenance, groundskeeping, and custodial services. So please, if anybody's interested in that, and anybody you might know of, encourage them to apply, as well as we have a vacant IT coordinator position, so we need to fill that position as well. Also had a hot topic, and I saved the best for last, was the insurance. Waiting to hear back from the insurance company, the insurance adjuster, to see what's ultimately going to happen. Reached out a few times, was unsuccessful, and one day got lucky, called Mr. Ortega, and he answered, or actually he didn't answer, he had to call me back. He called me back and stated that he was sorry and apologized for the holdup, but typically a storm event of this nature actually could take up to 7 to 8 months, which I wasn't huge on, I didn't agree with that, but he stated that, and he's been working with Tucumcari Public Schools, and I have a feeling he's maybe trying to group it all together, get everything together for both organizations, both higher ed with Mesalands and with Tucumcari Public Schools, before they move forward with that claim process. Anyhow, with that, he said he's working closely with CES, and in doing so, that'll streamline the procurement process, where something this significant, I probably have to go out for an invitation to bid, which could be quite lengthy, a lot of work, and push us back even more. So after speaking with him, he stated that he lacks just one more estimate out of all the buildings. I did ask for an update and what would be paid out for the others. He said we're gonna focus on the wind energy building for now, like I had reported last time, because that's the most critical. But he promised that within 30 days, within a month, that construction would start both on the exterior for the roof and the interior. So that's encouraging to hear. But still waiting to hear a report on the rest of the items, and that's supposed to be coming. He is supposed to be emailing me the estimates for what he does have to this point, because I'm curious just, I think ultimately, even though he's coordinating through CES, I'd like to have some input and bring that to the board to make sure that it's a credible company contractor that's going to be completing that work. So I'm looking forward to receiving those estimates. I'll be reaching out to him again tomorrow to please ask for those. It's been, I think, about a week now since he stated that. So I think that's the wrap up on most of the stuff for the insurance. We did successfully host, prevented the venue for the Business 101 boot camp, as well as the Quake County Health Council Mental Health Providers Recognition. And today it's something different. I had it on my report at the time because it hadn't occurred, but Legal Shield, who's a third-party vendor who sells pretty much insurance for legal, obtaining legal representation. They were here today as well, and just doing what we can to try to push out some of our facilities use, get that out there in the community. Most of these, since they are a benefit to our community or nonprofits of some nature, it's more of a reward of the return on knowledge than it is money. There's no money we receive from these last two events, but it's good to be part of the community and host those types of events. Also been working on, the last thing I'll close up with is a very important agreement that we're hoping to bring additional students to Mesalands. It's something that's, I don't want to talk about it too much yet. I don't want to jinx it, but if it's successful, it would be good for Mesalands and provide even more additional students here for the college. So conclude with that and ask at this time if you have any questions. I'd be happy to answer them.
I do want to thank you for the purchase order and requisition report. I think it's really, really good to know what some of these are for. Like a drone. We have a drone too.
We do. So that was when I first got into this purchase order process. It was at the end of last fiscal year, and it was for the CTE funds. And it was purchased, and it was justified to utilize that drone for inspection of the wind turbine. And that invoice is a bit dated. Again, I think we actually purchased that and received that back in around July. It was meant to be purchased and ordered prior to the end of the fiscal year and to be part of those CTE funds. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case, so now we're going to have to go and we're using additional or an alternate funding source to pay for that. Yeah, we're working hard to avoid those kinds of issues slipping through the cracks in the future. I wanted to get maybe the consensus, see how y'all felt about the report. I think it's a lot easier to follow than 50 individual purchase orders. The only thing that I'm going to try to work on now moving forward is to see exactly which department maybe that's hitting, which it's tied to. It gives a lot of information, but the one thing it doesn't is where the funds are coming from, which department did that benefit. So I'm hoping with InfoMaker I can maybe use that as a template and build on that and see what I can do to make it a little bit more detailed and maybe remove some of the other stuff that's just blank space to fine tune it for exactly what we need. But overall, I figured a 2 or 3 page report for multiple purchase orders makes sense rather than 50 individual purchase orders themselves.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I know I brought it up. And this would be a great report when we tie it to a financial.
Yes, sir.
So I appreciate you doing that for me.
Well, one of the things on the drone, I think that is a great tool that we have now that we can use to inspect these roofs every 2 or 3 times a year and so forth and stay on top of it a lot better. You know, not having to crawl up a ladder and walk on it and so forth like that. That's great technology that we can use that we have at our fingertips now.
There's a lot, and you get creative in certain ways, and maybe the primary source is for the wind turbine. Like I said, you could use it for roofs. You can even use it maybe for marketing. You might be able to take short video or
Right.
pictures. I don't know the capability of that particular drone, but yeah, sometimes you have to be creative and utilize certain things for multiple reasons.
Any other questions for Mr. Martinez? Appreciate it. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you.
Next, report from Facility Senate President, Ms. Griffith.
Hi. Well, we had a busy day on campus. There was a lot going on today with the heritage and the fry bread. I thought I didn't get to stay for the whole fry bread demo, but I peeked in there, and I know Connie Loveland was here with, she said 2 guys from San Diego that wanted to see a fry bread demonstration, which I thought was kind of neat. That was kind of fascinating. In my report, I talked about Wyatt Bishop going to the Ranch Rodeo finals, and I didn't get a chance to talk to him, but I did talk to one of his students that went with him, and I asked her today, how did it go? And she said she was real excited, said it was really fun, and she sold some of her jewelry, and there were lots of people that came by and picked up brochures and things and said, oh, this would be great, I'd like to take a course in silversmithing. And so anyway, that was her opinion, that she thought it went well, and I didn't, like I said, I didn't get to talk to Wyatt officially. This afternoon I also took my class, my first year seminar class, to the museum. It's one thing I try to do with my first year seminars. I tour them around all the campus facilities and let them know what other programs are there. So today we went to the museum, and Axel, Dr. Hungerbuehler, takes us in the back and shows them how they prep the bones and what they do. And you know, he doesn't give an official tour through we went through the whole museum, but he takes them in the back and shows them. And there was a lady there that was working through the microscope and showed them how she does it, and so it was kind of fun. And they, you know, and I asked them, what'd you think? They thought, that was fun, that was exciting, that was neat. But Lonnie wanted me to make sure I made an announcement. So I said, anything new around here I need to talk about? So she gave me a list. One thing she's all excited about is the 3 new billboards that are up about the Dinosaur Museum that came from Lodger's tax money, I guess. And she said, she asked everybody, how did you know about the Dinosaur Museum when they come? And they said 90% of them say through the billboards. So when those were taken down, she said, we're seeing a big increase in visitors because of the billboards. And so she's excited. She was excited about that. And while just as I was getting ready to leave here, 3 people walked in off the highway from. So they were there to go through the museum. She's also initiating a family pass. She said lots of people, you know, in Tucumcari, their families come and visit them over the holidays. And I asked her, I said, does it go slower over the holidays? She said no. Usually it increases because families come in to visit, and then they take their kids. So she's doing a family pass, and I think if they pay for 2 visits for their whole family, then they can come as many times as they want when they're in town, if they're here over the summer for a year. And she's keeping a record of that somehow, anyway. So that was interesting. She's also, from December 1st through December 24th, she's having a big sale, 20% off everything in the gift shop. And if you want to take your picture, if you want to get on Boots the dinosaur and take your picture, she will take your picture and print it off, and you can take it home with you. If anybody wants to go do that. And
What were the dates on that?
all of December, 12/1 to the 24th. So Christmas shopping there. And the other thing, the spring schedule's out, so we're starting to register students. Turned in a couple today that we're getting students registered for the spring semester. We do have, 2 more weeks in the semester. We have 1 week and then a week of finals. And then the last thing, my sister goes to Strong Seniors, and she called me a while ago right before the meeting, and she said, I know you're going to that board meeting, but I want you to tell everybody that the armory is so clean and it looks so nice. I know Teresa goes and said, it looks so clean, it's just shining, and it said the lights are on and the doors are open when we get there, and it's very, very nice, so that's my good plug for the day. Any questions?
They really enjoy it,
Yeah.
everyone that goes.
Right, they do. Any questions
Any
about
other
it?
questions?
Okay.
Thanks for all you do,
Okay.
appreciate it.
You're welcome, thank you.
Next will be Mr. Garcia.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and the board. So just a little update about the staff senate meeting we had a few weeks back. Staff was really happy with the change of spring break that the board approved during the last meeting. Happy that it lines up like with the Tuncurry school system and a lot for the dual students as well. So it's easier just for the employees that have kids in the schools. It makes it a lot easier for them. Staff, they asked about some of the construction on the west side of this building, Building A, and also the fitness center. I know Mark talked a little bit about that. You know, they just want to see it get done and get back to normal so we can start using the building. But like Mark said, we're finally getting some progress on that. So the staff will be excited about getting that all done. And I know I have people ask me personally about the fitness center and when's it going to get back to 24-hour access. So hopefully that'll happen real soon. You know, everybody's just really busy right now. All the departments stated, you know, there's a lot going on. We get to this point in the semester and it's crunch time for business office and educational services, everybody trying to get everything wrapped up, meet deadlines, things like that, just get the semester completed. I notice a lot of the staff is helping out. I know back in ESC in the library, we're all just trying to get, we get to November and the students start panicking as they got to get everything turned in, reports done, you know, projects done. So we're all chipping in and helping out the students, making sure they can get everything done and completed before we go on Thanksgiving break. And then the staff just mentioned there's been a lot of positive momentum generated this semester, and they're looking forward to having that continue into the spring. I think things are going a lot better this semester than they were in the spring, and definitely notice the morale of the staff just with that positive momentum. We're looking forward to just keeping that going. So that's basically all I had. It was a pretty short and sweet meeting. And
Any other questions for Mr. Garcia? Let's now start again. We appreciate all that they do too.
all right,
Very much.
will do. All right. Thank you guys.
Morale.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
yes, sir.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is executive session. I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
I make a motion, we go into executive session.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Sandoval,
Yes.
Mr. Primrose,
Yes.
Ms. Stevenson,
Yes.
Mr. Sidwell,
Yes.
and Mr. Box.
Yes.
And the motion
We'll reconvene from executive session. Do I have a motion to reconvene?
I so move.
A second.
Got a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Primrose,
Yes.
Ms. Stevenson,
Yes.
Mr. Sidwell,
Yes.
Mr. Box.
Yes.
And Mr. Sandoval,
Yes.
and the motion carried.
All right, there's no action after executive session. We do not have any correspondence. We still have our calendar and our reports. And so our next meeting will be Tuesday, December the 12th. This room at 5:30.
So I'm gonna miss that one. I'm gonna be in Albuquerque the 12th through the 17th.
Everybody else attend? As far as I know.
That's on there, so I haven't scheduled anything else. It's on the 19th. I think it's because she had said
Christmas
send
break
one,
is,
yeah. Yeah.
All right. I guess the last agenda item is I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So,
That's a move.
Got a motion and a
What you
second.
ready to go?
Roll call, please.